National security is one of the key issues in this election campaign. It's landed right in the middle of the war in Europe. Russia's foreign minister says there's going to be no pause in operations on the ground as the EU warns about an imminent escalation in the Russian offensive. I was joined earlier by Mark Watson from Washington. He's the director of the Australian Strategic Policy Institute's office in DC. I began by asking him for his assessment of the reaction in the United States to Joe Biden's handling of the ongoing conflicts.
Kieran, I think the president is still very much in tune with the broad brush public opinion here. The first 3 to 4 weeks, there was a very strong majority opposed to any US action that could lead to direct conflict with Russian forces. There was very strong support for enhanced, say, military supplies to Ukraine. There was very strong anger directed towards President Vladimir Putin. But in terms of the support the US was providing to Ukraine was very positive. One thing that has happened, though, although the polls are a bit choppy on these questions, there is clearly a trend of Americans, the American population, being more willing to consider the possibility of, say, a no-fly zone. So the latest poll I saw showed about a 50-50 split. And really, I think that's a direct result of the images that are being shown on American news programs every night of the week. The lead story is yet another horror story from Ukraine, those graphic images that we've all seen. And I think that is really affecting American public opinion, and they really want the president to do more, even if they're not absolutely certain what more looks like.
Now, President Biden has met with the Indian leader Narendra Modi and had a pretty blunt message for him as well when it comes to dealing with Russia.
He did. He really, I think, tried to up the ante a little bit with India to push them to take a stronger line on Russia. As we know, in the quad grouping of Australia, the US, Japan and India is the outlier here that really hasn't taken a firm line. But they have explained their position. They are very heavily reliant on Russian, particularly military supplies, but also energy supplies. And I think what the president was trying to do in this meeting today was to say, well, perhaps the United States could help India diversify its energy supplies, maybe help diversify its military supplies. India does buy military hardware from the United States, but by far the majority comes from Russia. So I think the president was trying to present some practical solutions for Russia's problem. But frankly, it appears that Prime Minister Modi was quite staunch in rejecting that, and it's the status quo.
What does that say about the Quad then, given India's a key player in the Quad, but certainly not on the same page as the US and Australia, not to mention Japan as well, when it comes to the issue of Russia?
Yeah, I think where we will land, and probably have already landed, is that when it comes to the Quad, the main game is the Indo-Pacific, and it really is a structure that Australia, the US and Japan would like to see continue, and India is critical to that. So I think the overarching message there is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The challenges presented by Chinese aggressive manoeuvring in the Indo-Pacific, particularly in the Pacific, will need to be confronted for many years, and the Quad is a part of that, and India is a critical pillar of that Quad grouping. So yes, there's disagreement over Russia, but Russia's not the main game for the Quad.
Last week's White House statement updating on AUKUS, on that arrangement with the UK and us as well, it included the reference to hypersonic missiles. What was your read on that update?
Kieran, I think it was a much needed statement. Ever since the announcement of AUKUS, there'd been a growing sense of, okay, so now what? And in a way, that statement, particularly the White House statement, really put some flesh on the bones. The hypersonics piece was a little surprising, but of course is reflective of where Australia sees its future defence needs in many ways, and that is a standoff capability and ability to project a threat forward a long way off Australia's shores. And interestingly, it also raises the possibility, and certainly the Minister Dutton raised this possibility, that Australia could in fact supply weapons back to the United States. And that's an important part of this AUKUS puzzle. We do need to look at it as a two-way exchange and not simply one-way traffic all coming from the United States.